The air was thick with celebration, a palpable sense of excitement coursing through the streets. Music pulsed through the night, its rhythm echoing off the buildings and drawing people into the festivities. Laughter and chatter filled the air, blending with the music to create a symphony of joy and camaraderie. It was supposed to be a night of joy, a celebration of life where friends and family gathered to mark a special occasion. Rapper Julio Foolio had just turned 22, a milestone that should have been filled with hope and promise. But fate, it seemed, had other plans, casting a dark shadow over the night's festivities. As the party spilled out into the night, with guests laughing and reminiscing, a sinister plot was already in motion, unseen by the revelers. Unbeknownst to Foolio and his friends, danger lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike, its presence felt but not seen. The party ended abruptly, the joyous atmosphere shattered by the deafening roar of gunfire, screams of terror replacing the laughter. When the smoke cleared, the scene was one of chaos and heartbreak. Julio Foolio lay dead, another victim of senseless violence, his dreams and potential snuffed out in an instant. The community mourned, gathering to remember a life cut tragically short, their hearts heavy with grief and anger. As dawn broke, the city awoke to the harsh reality of another young life lost, a stark reminder of the violence that continues to plague our streets. Julio Foolio, born Charles Jones, was more than just a rapper. He was a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of hope for many who felt unseen and unheard. He was a son, a brother, a friend. To his family, he was Charles, a young man full of life and laughter, always bringing joy to those around him. He was a young man with dreams, a talent for music, and a promising future ahead of him. From a young age, he showed a natural affinity for rhythm and poetry, often found scribbling lyrics in his notebook or strumming his guitar. His lyrics, raw and honest, resonated with many, reflecting the harsh realities of the streets he called home. He spoke of struggle, pain, and hope, painting vivid pictures of life in his neighborhood. His star was on the rise, his music gaining traction, his voice poised to break through. Each performance was a testament to his dedication and passion, drawing larger and more enthusiastic crowds. But his journey was cut tragically short, his potential forever unrealized. The same streets that inspired his art also harbored dangers that ultimately claimed his life. The streets that gave birth to his music ultimately claimed his life. His community mourns the loss of a bright light, a rising star dimmed too soon. His legacy, however, lives on through his music, a poignant reminder of what was and what could have been. At the heart of this tragedy lay a bitter feud, a cycle of violence that had plagued the streets for years. The city, once vibrant and full of life, had become a battleground where the echoes of gunfire were a daily occurrence. The residents lived in constant fear, their lives overshadowed by the ever-present threat of violence. The ATK and 1200 gangs locked in a deadly rivalry fueled by hatred and fueled by revenge. Their conflict was not just about territory or power, it was deeply personal, rooted in a history of betrayal and bloodshed. Each side sought to outdo the other, to prove their dominance through acts of brutality. Each act of violence, a retaliatory strike, a desperate attempt to assert dominance. The streets were littered with the remnants of their battles, bullet casings, shattered glass, and the haunting silence that followed each confrontation. The community watched helplessly as their neighborhood became a war zone. Lives were lost, families torn apart, a community held hostage by fear. The funerals became a grim routine, with families mourning their loved ones, lighting candles in their memory, and holding vigils in the hope that the violence would end. But the cycle continued, relentless and unforgiving. The feud, a cancer eating away at the fabric of their world, showed no signs of abating. The once thriving community now bore the scars of neglect and decay, with abandoned buildings and graffiti marking the territory of the warring factions. The sense of hopelessness was palpable, and Julio Foolio, unwittingly caught in the crossfire, would become another tragic statistic in this senseless war. His story was one of many, a testament to the devastating impact of the feud. As the community mourned yet another loss, they were left to wonder if there would ever be an end to the bloodshed. The events leading to Foolio's death were a chilling testament to the calculated nature of the crime. It was not a random act, not a spur-of-the-moment decision. It was an orchestrated hit, planned with chilling precision. Surveillance footage, pieced together like a macabre puzzle, revealed the movements of the suspects. Their faces, obscured by hoodies and masks, could not hide the cold, hard glint in their eyes. They were on a mission, driven by a single-minded purpose, to eliminate their target. Section 5. Caught on camera. The ambush and its aftermath. The footage of the ambush was chilling. A white SUV captured on camera stalking its prey. Foolio, unaware of the danger lurking just around the corner, climbed into his car. Then a sudden burst of gunfire, the SUV speeding away into the night, leaving behind a scene of chaos and carnage. Witnesses described the scene as a war zone, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder. Foolio's car, riddled with bullet holes, stood as a grim testament to the brutality of the attack. Section 6. Justice served, the arrests and ongoing manhunt. The investigation, swift and relentless, led to the arrest of 3 suspects, Alicia Andrews, Isaiah Chance Jr., and Johann Greit. Their faces, plastered across news channels, became synonymous with the brutal crime. But 2 more suspects, Rashad and Davin Murphy, remained at large, ghosts haunting the streets, their faces added to the growing list of wanted fugitives. The manhunt, relentless and far-reaching, spanned state lines, a desperate race against time to bring all those responsible to justice. Section 7. Behind bars, the price of hatred. The suspects, now behind bars, faced a litany of charges: murder, conspiracy, attempted murder. The evidence against them, overwhelming and irrefutable, painted a grim picture of their involvement in the crime. Prosecutors, determined to seek justice for Foolio and his family, vowed to leave no stone unturned. The trial, a media spectacle, promised to be a long and arduous process. But one thing was clear: the suspects, driven by hate and blinded by loyalty, would be held accountable for their actions. Section 8. Social media's grim role, fueling the fire. In the aftermath of the murder, social media became both a platform for mourning and a breeding ground for further animosity. Tributes poured in from fans, fellow artists, and those whose lives had been touched by Foolio's music. But alongside the outpouring of grief came a torrent of anger, threats, and calls for retaliation. The digital world, mirroring the real-world conflict, became a battleground where the cycle of violence was perpetuated. Section 9. A community in mourning. The ripple effects of violence. Julio Foolio's murder sent shockwaves through the community, leaving behind a trail of grief, anger, and fear. His death, a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of gang violence, ignited a call for change. Community leaders, activists, and residents, weary of the bloodshed, demanded an end to the violence that had plagued their streets for far too long. They knew that this cycle of violence, if left unchecked, would continue to claim innocent lives. Section 10. The cycle continues. Gang violence and its toll. But even as the community mourned, the cycle of violence continued. Retaliatory shootings, fueled by anger and a thirst for revenge, threatened to further escalate the conflict. The streets once again became battlegrounds, innocent lives caught in the crossfire. The police, stretched thin and fighting an uphill battle, struggled to contain the violence, their efforts often feeling like a mere band-aid on a gaping wound. Section 11. A plea for peace. Remembering Julio Foolio. Julio Foolio's story is a tragic reminder of the devastating impact of gang violence. It's a story that underscores the urgent need for change, for a collective effort to break the cycle of violence that continues to plague our communities. We must remember Julio Foolio not just for his music, but for the life cut short, for the potential forever unrealized. Let his death serve as a wake-up call, a catalyst for change, a reminder that we must choose peace over violence, hope over despair,